Living in the golden age of craft beer, we as drinkers have more options than ever. Bottle shops seem to be full of an endless cavalcade of styles and seasonal releases that America's 7,000 plus craft breweries are cranking out on a daily basis. While there are plenty of great IPAs, stouts, and sours to choose from, there are definitely some beers that break the mold. So today we're going to put away the Kolsch and the Amber Ales and take a look at 27 of the strangest beers that have ever been brewed. This is Ryan with Beer by the Numbers, and thank you for joining me on this dive into the weirder side of craft beer. Now, craft brewers are a creative bunch, and one of the ways they live on the wild side is by using strange ingredients. Our first group of beers use off-the-wall ingredients in order to make the list today. Imperial Mexican lagers are already a strange style. They take a normally light and crushable lager and turn it into a boozy power beer. But Unknown Brewing Company took the strangest to the next level by adding 99 scorpions, yes, scorpions, to their brew. They also used some agave nectar and serrano pepper to give a beer a distinctly Mexican flavor, but I really think they could have just stopped at adding scorpions. I've covered this strange style of the oyster stout before, but Wynkoop Brewing in Colorado took it to the next level with their Rocky Mountain oyster stout. Bull testicles in beer? Actually, 3 testes per barrel, because 4 would be too much, you know? Slippery Pig Brewery is actually run by farmers in Washington State, using only local ingredients for their beer. They love local ingredients so much, they'll basically make anything that grows in the area into beer. Think of anything from fresh pickles and stinging nettles, all made into beer. That sounds a little bit dangerous to me. What did the 3 wise men bring as presents for the brand new baby Jesus? Gold, frankincense, and myrrh, of course. The Lost Abbey thought it would be appropriate to use all 3 of these biblical gifts in a beer, creating a golden beer that is bittered with the bark of frankincense and also contains a small amount of myrrh. I guess brewers can literally take inspiration from almost anywhere to make a beer that stands out. I don't know about you, but back in college, I was usually looking for some cheap things to eat, and oftentimes turned to a few frozen pizzas while knocking back some beers with friends. Well, Evil Twin took this scenario and brewed it all into a stout, even the money. They collaborated with Norwegian brewery Lervig Bryggeri and chucked some frozen Hawaiian pizzas and real Norwegian banknotes straight into the fermenter. The college struggle all in a single bottle. With the goal of making the spiciest beer in the world, Twisted Pine's Ghostface Killa uses 6 different kinds of ultra-hot peppers, including one of the world's spiciest, the ghost pepper. I don't think I'm brave enough to try this one, but it's definitely out there in the strange ingredients category. So, Iceland is pretty cold, meaning the local food is unique. Stedje Brewery makes the weirdly named sheep dung smoked whale testicle. This Icelandic beer uses sheep dung smoked whale testicles. Yes, that is a thing. The seasonal Icelandic brew uses 3 testicles per tank, and it's meant to be enjoyed along with the equally suspect-sounding local delicacies, such as cured sheephead and rotten shark. What happens when a microbiologist finds yeast DNA in a 45 million year old piece of prehistoric fossilized amber? Well, they use it to make beer, obviously. Fossil Fuels Brewery made a Jurassic Saison. Dubbed their Jurassic beer, this brew has cornered the market on ancient yeast. Cheers to keeping it old school. Abashiri Brewery, a Japanese brewer from the Hokkaido region, made beers that were colored red, blue, and green using seaweed and other naturally occurring ingredients. They also made Bilk, a malt beverage that was a combination of beer and surplus milk. Colorful, to say the least. Squid ink, or more accurately squid, cuttlefish, and octopus ink, has become so common that you wonder how scared the animals can possibly be. Anyway, the brewmasters at Three Sheeps in Wisconsin made their IPA into a black IPA using Squiddick for their Nimble Limbs Noble Tongue number 3. Cock ale has taken on almost mythic proportions over the years. Said to be popular in England in the 16 and 1700s, it was a normal ale with the addition of a whole rooster. Connecticut's Williamatic Brewing Co.'s hand-pulled cock ale, a 7% ABV cask-only version, was a modern take that still relied on a very old joke for the name. Chicken and beer go together like that song in Grease, so why not put the chicken in the beer? The Vale Brewing Company of Richmond, Virginia saddled up with Evil Twin to do just that. A whole heap of Chick-fil-A tenders went into a brew for their collaboration, Fried Chicken Double IPA. And Dock Street Brewing Company of Philadelphia paid tribute to The Walking Dead with its Dock Street Walker, upping the zombie stakes by tossing in some smoked goat brains. It's a 7.2% ABV pale stout, and there are also some cranberries in there to offer a bit of a citrusy bite. But sometimes, strange ingredients aren't enough to get some beers into the really weird territory. Luckily, enterprising brewers can mess with brewing techniques to make their beers all the stranger. You could say that Rogue's master brewer John Mayer is really good at cultivating yeast. After all, they are one of the most popular craft beer brands across the country. But one day, they decided to cultivate yeast a little more literally and extracted some yeast from John's beard to brew a batch of beer. It wasn't exactly brewing yeast, so it didn't really have a style, but apparently the beer tasted pretty good. Speaking of wacky places to get yeast, Roald Dahl's writing chair was swabbed by weirdos at 40 Foot Brewing to make their odious ale. Fun fact, the chair was custom made to help Dahl write after suffering a back injury during World War II. Any good beer nerd like myself will tell you that beer is part science, so why not double down on the science and use an ingredient that requires a ton of science to acquire? Dogfish Head used dust from lunar meteorites for a beer, which apparently enhanced the fermentation process. They brewed it as a small batch released in their beach brew pub to honor the fall equinox in 2013. Running a music festival involves a ton of logistics. Not only do you have to book all the bands and sell all the tickets, but you also have to do things like collect all the waste and get rid of it. One creative way to do that is to make beer from people's pee. Over 50,000 gallons of pee from Denyard's Rock Slide Music Festival were collected and used to fertilize a field of barley. Then the grain was used by a Danish brewery and the government to make a Pilsner for next year's festival. This beer was literally made with piss water. So take that, macro light beers. Brewed with leftover bread scraps, toasted pale ale lets you get buzzed and cut down on food waste at the same time. To make the beer, restaurants and bakeries across London donate bread that would otherwise be thrown out. The bread is then toasted and broken down before going into the tank to get a second life as beer. Coffee beer, which is not really strange. Beer made from coffee that's been digested by Thai elephants? Now that's definitely strange. Un Kono Kono is a Japanese beer, and you can call it elephant poo beer. Made by fermenting coffee beans that have passed through the digestive system of Thai elephants, this beer takes that whole animals pooping out coffee bean trend to the next level. What do you think a beer aged 200 years would taste like? Well, after 5 bottles of beer were discovered in a shipwreck back in 2011, 4 professional taste testers got to find out. The shipwreck was dated back to the early 1800s, and unsurprisingly, the tasters found that the beer was very old. They also thought it tasted acidic with some burnt notes. While you might not be able to get your hands on one of those 5 bottles of 200-year-old beer, you can maybe get a chance to taste a recreation of the brew, since one of the salvagers happens to be a microbrewery owner who wants to work with scientists to resurrect the formula. Philadelphia's Dock Street Brewery decided to play it by ear when it came to their Ain't Nothin' to Funk With. The beer rests in red wine barrels for 6 months, while rap stylings of the Wu-Tang Clan are played on loop all day and night. The Golden Saison is 7.21% ABV, so it definitely brings the ruckus. Dogfish Head and famed chef Mario Batali joined forces to make Waste Not Pruno, their take on the infamous prison moonshine. Rather than use the prison-issued fruit cocktail, bread, and ketchup, they went to the markets and picked up overripe produce to highlight Batali's work in fighting food waste. Unlike in jail, they didn't brew it by hiding it in plastic bags in the toilet cistern, though. Ninkasi Brewing Company wins points for offering a stunt beer without stunt flavoring. The yeast in this pitch black stout survived a trip to outer space and back, but it doesn't seem to have impacted the flavor. This is a beer with heavy chocolate, hazelnut, and espresso notes that comes with a bitter finish. The high ABV is noticeable, but this beer can and probably should be aged. And this final group of brews is so strange that it begs the question, is this still beer? Great Lakes Brewing Company makes some great beers, but when they found some beer nerds at the University of Chicago, they got together and had a crazy idea. They took a 5,000-year-old beer recipe from ancient Sumeria and recreated the beer using ingredients and tools available to ancient humanity. The beer was released only at a cool launch party and was deemed way too sour and not alcoholic enough for modern palates. Weird. If you ever wanted to get drunk on just a few sips of beer, Snake Venom is the beer for you. It clocks in at a heroic 65.5% ABV, which is stronger than most liquors out there. Strong and strange. If you're looking for something with a nice blend of weirdness and a package to catch the eye of your guests, try getting your hand on Brewdog's End of History, a 50% ABV beer that released in 2010 and sold for the absurd price of $765. But you weren't just paying for the potency. The End of History was a special limited release edition Belgian blonde ale. Only 12 bottles remained, and they were all contained within the taxidermied body of a squirrel or weasel. Going back to Japan for another strange entry, Hello Kitty has created a series of fruit-flavored brews adorned with a cute mascot. They come in sweet flavors like peach, passion fruit, and banana, and have about half the alcohol of a Budweiser. One reviewer says the flavor tastes like Fanta, but with a beer aftertaste. Some people think beer can be a legitimate workout supplement, and this Japanese beer is a different sort of supplement. Aimed at the ladies, Suntory's Precious contains collagen, so the makers hope it will help clear up your horrible, wrinkled old lady skin, or keep you looking young, or something. Aside from your 2 grams of collagen per 330 milliliters, you also get a 5% ABV light lager. And this last beer has to be great for brunch. Shorts Brewing Company out of Bel Air, Michigan uses Roma tomatoes, black peppercorns, celery seeds, horseradish, and dill to create their bloody beer. One of the long discounted fresh pints of Bel Air came in at 7% ABV and 40 IBUs. And that was 27 of the strangest beers that I've found have ever been brewed. One thing I want to note before I wrap up here is that the definition of what is strange has really evolved in the craft beer community over the last 5 years. Looking at articles from like 2012, I was seeing beers made to taste like key lime pie or the now popular oyster stout being touted as really, really strange. Beers made to taste like desserts or other dishes are actually really common here in 2019. So it'll be interesting to see what of these 27 strange brews today might be commonplace in the future. And if you enjoyed this video and want to see what strange brews I get my hands on in the future, check the link in the description to my Instagram page. Lots of cool beer pictures for your viewing pleasure. Once again, this has been Ryan with Beer by the Numbers, and I'll be back next time with more strange beer content.